This evening is special as we enter into this holy Shabbat, but also as we commemorate Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. As Jacob Friedlander, and Herschel and Rochelle, and Herschel is here this evening to share his story of survival. Jacob, who is one, and I'll say equally as important, of his sons, of their sons, who stands here with our Holocaust scroll from Czechoslovakia that normally stands outside in that case as witness. This evening, we hold it dear to our hearts as we make sure that never again isn't simply just a slogan, but it's something we act on this evening. You may be seated. We begin this evening with the words of Yedid Nefesh, page 10. Yedid Nefesh, our Kabbalat Shabbat music and prayer. Page 10, as the words tell us, source of mercy, draw us into your arms.
Yedid Nefesh of Rahman, of Rahman, Mishach Abdecha, El Ritzonecha, El Ritzonecha, Yarutz Abdecha, Imoaya Ishakave Imuhadarecha Yedid Nefesh of Rahman, of Rahman, Mishach Abdecha El Ritzonecha El Ritzonecha.
Before we light our Shabbat candles, we light our Yom HaShoah candles, our 6 candles representing the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. So you all should have received a packet when you came in. So on the cover of that packet, it reads, "We begin with silence. The silence of death, the silence after destruction. There are times when songs falter, when darkness feels light, when martyrdom becomes a consolation of faith. Against the unrelieved black of space about us, there are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messenger to tell the full tale. There is only silence, the silence of Job, the silence of the 6 million, the silence of memory. Let us remember them as we link our silence." We kindle these lights in the memory of the 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. May the memory of the righteous be for blessing. Zichronam Libracha. It is the words of Hanasesh. Please join with me. Blessed is the match
Consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed is the heart with the strength to keep its beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
share his story of survival this evening. My honor to call up Kol Emeth member Sandy, representing your family, your dearest father who has left such a beautiful legacy for you. To light our third candle, Vera and your dear daughter, Nikki and Roger. And Vera, your story of courage and survival inspires us as well. For our fourth candle, we call up Pastor Jamie Dickens and Reverend Julie Meyer, two of our local faith partners who continue to stand with us for humanity, for love and understanding. To light our fifth candle, Preeti Bhavin, representing all of our partners, not just in the Indian Hindu community, but all of our, whoa, thank you, Blake. It's amazing how that works, isn't it? And I'd also like to call up Brett Brubaker as well. And Brett represents one of my partners in the Cobb County Neighborhood Safety Commission. And Brett and I together, along with Jeff Wood, continue to help make Cobb County safe for all. So thank you as well for being here tonight. For our sixth candle, I'd like our President, Joey Roberts, to join Consul General Anat Sultan Dadon and Deputy Consul General Alex Gendler to light our sixth and final candle. And I'd ask the Consul General to share some words with us at this time. Because going from, as we've left Passover, as we go from degradation to glory, that out of the ashes of the Holocaust comes the state of Israel. And Anat Sultan Dadon has come to the southeast doing amazing work, sharing the power and importance of the state of Israel, not just for the solidarity and security of Jews all over the world, but in partnership for humanity. Consul General, it's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Rabbi. And honestly, the honor is mine to be with you and to be with you all. This morning, I had the honor to participate alongside with the rabbi and some who are here this evening in a Holocaust commemoration event at the Georgia State Capitol, organized by the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. But rather than open with the remarks that I gave at the Capitol, I would like to share with you a poem that I shared yesterday at our small and informal consulate team commemoration. This is my translation into English of a poem by Israeli songwriter Noam Chorev. Jew is born with a transparent train from which he got off, and on it is his life, and on it is the laughter of his children. Every Jew is born with a heavy load on his back, and a tattered yellow badge that is pinned to his heart. Every Jew must question. Every Jew has returned from the abyss. Every Jew is a survivor. Every Jew is born with an imaginary number on his arm that helps him remember where he comes from and where he cannot allow himself to return. 6 million of our people were murdered in the Shoah, but we have emerged from the depths of the Holocaust to stand strong, and will continue to stand strong, strengthened also by our brothers and sisters throughout history. Next week, the state of Israel will celebrate its 74th Independence Day, the establishment of the modern state of Israel following the millennia-old yearning of the Jewish people to return to our ancient homeland and regain our sovereignty. The everlasting commitment of Israel, the nation-state of the Jewish people, is that never again will a Jew face hate, danger, or persecution with nowhere to turn. Never again will a Jew stand defenseless with no home to welcome him and offer protection. Our Jewish tradition has taught us the merits of forgiving and forgetting. But when there is an attempt to destroy us, then our Bible commands us and stresses the command by repeating it twice. Remember what Amalek did to you. You shall not forget. I'd like to thank Rabbi Cernowitz, Temple Kol Emeth, and all of you here for your contribution to remembering and not forgetting. Am Yisrael Chai. The people of Israel live.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. And the people of Israel do live, especially when we raise our children to have a strong Jewish identity, to speak up and do what's necessary. And Jenna, who becomes bat mitzvah tomorrow morning, is one of those amazing souls. Yes, you can smile, and your sisters are giving you a hard time already. So, Jenna, why don't you bring your family up at this time? Page 2, as we head into Hadlakat Nerot, the Shabbat, as we light our Shabbat candles. Page 2.
Hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say, Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We turn to page 20, a Shabbat anthem, Lecha Dodi, written by Shlomo Alkabetz and the mystics of Sfat, that said that really in order to welcome in Shabbat, we have to be open, our hearts, our minds, our souls, in welcoming the beauty and the mystery and the potential of Shabbat. We join together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha Dodi nikrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad v'shemo echad, V'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat nekuven elcha, ki mekor ha'aracha, merosh mikedem nisucha, sof ma'aseh b'man Shabbat techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Yitoreri, yitoreri, kiva orech umiuri, uri shidaveri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela.
If you're able, please rise and face the entrance.
Ohi v'shalom ateret bala, am b'simcha v'tzola, toch emunei am segula, mo'i chala, mo'i chala.
Please turn around, remain standing.
Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela.
We call Jenna forward once again to lead us in the Chatzi Kaddish, the Reader's Kaddish, page 26. Amen. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, u'vizman kahariv.
Mimeru.
Amen. Hey Shemei Rabba Mivorach, Me'alam Ulal Me'al Maya, Yitbarach.
Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitrama, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yithaleh, v'yithalal, Shemei Dekudishah,
Brichu,
Le'olam mikol b'chata v'shirata,
Tush Bechata V'nechemata, Dahamiran V'yalma, Meru. Amen. Well done, well done. We continue with our formal call to worship, the Baruch Hu, on page 28.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yalai, 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 yalai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Together. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed Le'olam va'ed Yalai 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 yalai. Page 34, we continue with the Shema, the watchword of our faith, as we remember that listening is not suggested but commanded. The word Shema, it's tzivui in Hebrew. It doesn't suggest, hey, if you want to listen, you must listen. God wants you to pay attention to what's around you, to the world around you, and respond. Shema isn't just about passively listening, but actively turning the listening into a deed that makes the world just a little bit better. We join in the words of the Shema, page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivon, Shem Kivon, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Hayem.
ABC, page 36.
And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all of thy mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, when thou risest up, when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. Thou shalt write them on the doorpost of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates. We shall remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Adonai Elohechem Emet, God is our God in truth. We continue with the words of Shirat Hayam, Michamocha, on page 40. It's the song of freedom. It's what Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang at the shores of the Sea of Reeds as they crossed. And the power is that you have to cross first. And Egypt, Mitzrayim, is ever present in our lives. God waits for us to take that first step to make a difference. So we join in the words of Michamocha as we think about our own freedom, and that freedom is indeed never free.
מי כמוך בנים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, לא ראיתי לא עושה פלא,
Torah Tehilot, oh Sefer Lech, Yalai, 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 מלכותך ראו בניך, חוקי הים לפני משה מרים. זה אלי אנו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ידי 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 אמר כי פרדון את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. As we continue with the Amidah on page 46, this is our moment, the heart of Jewish prayer, the tefillah, the Amidah. In a moment we will rise together as one community. But rising means that we stand in solidarity. Because without standing up, we don't stand for anything. And this is why we are here, to stand up, to bear witness, to be one with our God and say, dear God, give us the courage and strength to do what is right. Because our ancestors came before us, and now we are the legacy. We rise, page 46, for the Amidah.
Adonai sifata tiftaku fi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Page 48.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zoher Hastei Avot V'Imachot, U'Mevi Gula Lifnei V'Nechem,
Leman Shemo B'Yahava,
Melech Zer Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham V'Zrat Sarah.
Page 50.
Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Ata Rav V'Hoshia, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Remit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol.
Maybe see.
Atah kadosh, V'shimcha kadosh, U'kedoshim b'chol yom, Yehalelucha Selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh, You are holy, and your name is holy. Those who strive to be holy, declare your glory day by day. Blessed is our God, blessed is the one, O world ablaze with splendor, Atah Kadosh, V'shimcha Kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom, Hallelujah Selah. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue silently through the end of the Amidah. Feel free to use the words on the page for the prayers of your own hearts. Page 62 and 63 have what are known as kavanah, intentionality, to direct our thoughts to making a difference in the world. Page 253, Mishaberach L'cholim. As we think about all those who are in need of healing in our community, in our hearts. The back page of your program lists the names in our community. Abby Gabalev, Al Justin, Arthur Newman, Asha Patel, Athena Pickett, Barry Rosenblatt, Bob Luciano, Bruce Cohen, Dr. Bruce Fox, Carol Silver, Karen Manley, Charles Weiss, Christina Bat Carroll, Cindy Beaupre, Debbie Singerman, Dee Singer, Dennis Bazer, Denny Jua, Donald Schaefer, Dottie Gross, Edith Ekber, Elaine Bridges, Ellen Luster, Elliot Kirshner, Esther Greenwald, Eyal Ben Audrey, Fair Goldstein, Gloria Goldsmith, Greg Mosher, Heather Al-Hadef, Helene Holzman, Howie Levner, Isidore Cohen, Jack Wayman, Jax Barr, Janet Brooks, Jerry Barrett, Jessica Berkeley, Jill Shepard, Joan Niga, Joe Marks, Joyce Newman, Judith Siegel, Judy Weiss, Kathleen Furch, Kathy Rasnick, Laura Jacoby, Lauren Freedom, Lee Sexton, Lisa Macklin, Lisa Oppenheim, Liz Lyman, Lori Sherman, Lowell Morrow, Marilyn Krasnov, Mark Fisher, Marlene Kaplan, Dr. Mary Watkins, Max Gans, Maxime Buccarelli, Melissa Smith, Mary Perloff, Nancy Shalley, Norman Rosenblatt, Pat Fisher, Patty Savage, Paul Graboff, Phil Kaufman, Phyllis Mix, Piper Lyman, Ralph DeCito, Ray Clark, Rick Hack, Roberto Maybisher, Sandy Fay, Shelley Bitter, Sherry Rosenblum, Stuart DeVoskin, Susan Levy, Dr. Tim Mooney, Tom Wysinski, Valerie Simmerman, and Vicki Reynolds. If you have another name that is in your heart this evening, feel free to call out that name as we go around the sanctuary. We take all those names into our hearts with our own. middle of page 253. We join in prayer.
Avotenu Mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Ishebera imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, dear God, who heals the sick. Let us say it together, Amen. Amen. If you prayed for someone this evening, please let them know, as it's always a comfort to know that you're not alone in your time of need. You may feel free to close your Sidorim for just a few moments, as it's my honor to call up Herschel Greenblatt. Herschel and I got to know each other through Cobb County schools. And for most of you, I don't need to say anymore. The ignorance, the lack of education, the plain arrogance of some school district officials to not take action when action is needed and demanded. And Herschel stood up at the school board meeting, and there's no other way to put it, Herschel. You gave them hell, and I'm glad you did. Because then they honored him and wouldn't let him speak. And we didn't take no for an answer, did we, Herschel? Because that next meeting, he got up there and he told them the lessons of the Holocaust. This is a long time coming, Herschel. We've done a lot of work together, and we still have a lot of work to do. And it was wonderful to see you honored at the state capitol this morning. Rightfully deserved. And I'm glad to see Rochelle and your son Jacob here with you this evening. I turn the bima, if you will, over to you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Uh-oh. That was cute.
The worst catastrophe.
Wow. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I know not to lean on that anymore.
Should we say, we just got over Passover. Mayim? All right. Just, here, I'll take it for you. Here.
We are celebrating the days of remembrance. As a child growing up, I didn't want to remember. My mother, Manya, my father, Abraham, didn't really talk to me about it, what they went through. Many a night in the first year or two after we came to the United States, as I was trying to get some sleep, I could hear from the other bedroom sobbing. My mother would get up in the middle of the night, go out on the front porch, cry her heart out. My father, the same. So growing up, being in the United States, I also wanted to forget the things that I remembered, the things that I lived through. I found out, of course, many, many years later as to what happened. My mother had 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Thankfully, her 2 sisters, in the early 30s, left for Israel to find a new life, to plant the state of Israel. I found out in research that what happened to the rest of my mother's family. The Nazis decided, no, the Jews of Ukraine, we're not going to put them into ghettos, we're just going to murder them. The Einstein grouping, the mobile killing machines, the 3,000 horrendous soldiers, but they were commanded by some of the finest of the German hierarchy. And of course, what they did is they commanded Jewish human beings, men, women, and children, to gather in a central area, and were told that they were going to take them to safety. Of course, what they did in humiliation took him deeply into a forest where there were no witnesses, and lined him up in front of ditches. Of course, the men first, so there would be no resistance, and just machine gunned them to death. Then they took the women and children and did the same thing. I asked myself, what was their crime? And the only answer I have is that they were Jews. Babinyard, on September the 28th and 29th of 1941, the massacre of almost over 30,000 human beings. So that's what happened to my grandparents, my 2 uncles, their wives, and my cousins. My father, at 19, he was born in Lublin, Poland. He was the youngest of a very large family. Most of them were girls. There were some twins. Before, of course, September the 1st of 1939, the invasion of Poland took what? couple of weeks, and then the humiliation, the destruction of human beings started. Gathered up the Jews of Poland, city of Warsaw, Krakow, Lodz, and also in the city of Lublin. My father decided to fight back. My father would hide in the sewers and basements, along with other young men. Then he found out, and when the Lublin ghetto was formed, found out that he was being sought after. They wanted to kill him, along with others. So he escaped. A cold November night, 1939, about a month before his 20th birthday, across the border into Ukraine. Months later, he met up with a young group of resistance underground fighters that were actually resisting against the Russian Gulag, the Russian people. The Russians at that time hated the Jews pretty much just as much. My mother was underground, helping to find food, supplies, medical supplies. She was only 18 years old. My mother wasn't 5 feet tall. My mother never weighed 100 pounds. But when you think about a Jewish mother, you know what I'm talking about. They will go to the ends of the earth for their children. My mother and father, they met up. Hey, he's 19 years old, she's 18 years old. They got married in the summer of 1940. As they fought together, resisted together, did what they could possibly do to bring a little peace, to bring some food. Of course, Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of Ukraine by the Nazis in June of 1941. One afternoon, as I was told, my mother and my father were out for supplies, or they were out for some sort of service that they wanted to do, and came upon a group of Nazi soldiers and Russian soldiers, because her hometown was more in the west, not too far from the border. They were hiding behind some rocks and some vegetation, and a vehicle blew up. A piece of shrapnel from that vehicle hit my mother in her right leg. My mother was bleeding to death. My father had to make a decision. I've got to get my wife to some sort of medical attention. But I've got a young infant child hiding in a cave with other resistance. Yes, I spent the first year and a half of my life underground in the caves of Ukraine. My father knew that trying to take her and an infant child at the same time, the probability of us making it was non-existent. All he had was a horse-drawn cart. He begged the others, please take care of my child. I will give my wife medical attention, and when she's better, I'll come back. Hopefully my child will still be alive. About 4 to 5 weeks later, it took that long, after some surgeries, they came back. But what could they possibly do to help? They were going to be more of a hindrance. They were going to be more of a problem. So my father made the decision. The first decision was to destroy every possible piece of identification. We became non-existent. We became nobody. And decided to go even further east. 250 miles, city of Krasnar. It took us weeks. My mother, in the most awful excruciating, she was in pain for the rest of her life from that wound. We get to Krasnar. My father, very ingenuously, took a job with the Russian army in the bakery of one of their camps. He told them he was a baker. He never was, but he learned how, he was baking bread. My mother, sometimes on crutches, sometimes with a cane, would go from house to house, begging for food, just let me and my infant child, sleep in your basement. That's, I'll clean, I'll do whatever is necessary. And we stayed, the Nazis in reality never got that far east. City of Krasnar. So we were there for a year and a half. My father working in the bakery, my mother doing what she could or what she had to do. There were other Jewish families in hiding there. One day, of course, my father made a very, 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 very big mistake. He decided, I'm going to take 2 loaves of bread, take it to my family. I'll just put them under my coat. Nobody will, hey, there's hundreds of loaves of bread here. Nobody's going to notice. Well, they did. That was in March of 1943. He was put into a Russian prison. He was imprisoned. My mother had no idea. She thought he never came back. He never showed up, so she thought he had been killed. A month later, my little sister Anne was born. So here's my mother, basically on one leg, taking care of 2 children. And many a times I would ask her, because I sat in the kitchen with her quite a bit, and I said, what happened? How did we survive? And she gave me the same answer that the Jews over the last 5,000 years give, because we had to. That was her answer to me. Let's fast forward to late summer of 1945. Thankfully, my mother did the smart thing. She never left the area. My father, because the Russians were allies at the time, was actually released from prison. I have a picture of him about a month after he was released. My father didn't weigh 100 pounds. But my father knew also that the life for Jews under communism, under Stalin, when the Iron Curtain came down, was not going to be any better. Now, I was almost 5 years old. My father decided to, with others, get a hold of a couple of cattle cars, train engine, and knew that safety was 12, 13, 1,400 miles away in a DP camp, a displaced persons camp, opened up by the United States outside the city of Salzburg, Austria. It was called Beth Bialik, an old German type of army camp that had been bombed and pretty much destroyed months before. "184 people. My mother had these numbers written down. 184 people from the age of 2, which my little sister Ann, sorry to say about back in October, I was telling she passed away. She was 2, and there were 2 gentlemen in their 90s. There was 32 children on the 2 cattle cars. A trip across Europe to safety. The Russians were not going to let you do that because communism, who better to enslave or to work than the Jews? We could only travel under darkness. Food, non-existent. We had to be very quiet because if you were caught by any of the Russian police or Russian, what they did one of 2 things. If you were lucky, they would send you back. But what they like to do when they caught Jews trying to escape is to lock them inside those cattle cars and set them on fire. So we could only travel under darkness. Whatever food was what we could, by the side of the railroad track. The stench, the lice, the rats, the roaches. Hey, I was 5, I remember. The 2 elderly gentlemen passed away. And I remember, just like it happened this morning, my father and 2 or 3 of the other men wrapped those 2 elderly Jewish men in a burlap sack and laid their bodies on the side of the railroad track. We couldn't even give them a decent burial. They said, "Kaddish," we went on our way. Late November 1945, we actually made it across the border into Austria. Outside the DP camp of Beth Bialik. The doors open up, and in front of me are soldiers. A lot of bright lights, and they're soldiers. Now, seeing soldiers at the age of 5, I wasn't sure which way this was going to go. But these were American soldiers, American Army nurses, and they took the 32 children off the train into a kind of infirmary setting. And I remember it was so white, so clean. But we were so filthy. We were covered in human waste from head to toe. My mother said, as a 5-year-old, I weighed somewhere around 20 pounds. We were taken in, undressed, bleeding from some of the bites from these insects, sprayed with a delousing powder, And in a year and a half, it took about a year and a half, and for the most part, we were brought back to life. But the survivors kept coming and coming out of the concentration camps, out of hiding. We had no place to go. We had no homes to go back to. So, we were transferred to another camp about 15 miles away called Haline. Haline was a decent camp. We actually had our own room. We had electricity. We had a wood floor. But we were given food, medical attention, but of course we weren't given knives and forks and spoons, just what human beings need to become human. Well, that, you had to buy that. My father, along with about 20 other men in the camp, formed a black market group. And I'm sure that most of the other camps that did the same, and they would trade cigarettes and jewelry and whatever they had to do, they did. And we were in that camp for almost 5 years. Not only did my mother have to take care of her 3 children, oh, by the way, my sister Ethel was born in the camp of Beth Bialik. So now there's 3 of us. But some of the children in the camp didn't have parents. There were some orphans. Not only was she taking care of the 3 of us, but many a night, there may be 10 or 12 kids sleeping on the floor in our room, and my mother watching over us. Our hope, our prayer, of course, was Eretz Israel. Because of the War of Independence, the British blockades, the Arabs. It was going to be a long, long time. We have family in Israel. And my mother made a decision because of some specific laws that were passed. We were eligible to sign up to go to the United States. The process took over 3 years. And Kol Nidre night of 1949, like it happened, again, like I said, like it happened, Kol Nidre night, 1949, we're on a train from Salzburg to our DP camp for Kol Nidre services. We wait. It took another year. November the 16th, 1950, out of Bremerhaven, Germany, we board the USS General Belau for a trip across the North Atlantic to America. It took about 10 days. Very, very sick 10 days. My mother was the whole 10 days in the hospital, in the ship, along with my sisters. And I with my father. My father was, whatever he could do, he took a job in the commissary of the ship. So I had what I needed. The 10th day out, the day before Thanksgiving, 1950, I'm sleeping, way down in the bottom, and my father wakes me up. It must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning. Wakes me up and takes me up on deck. Says, there's something you've got to see. I get up on deck and finally get to the rails, and everybody was dancing, laughing, crying, hugging, kissing. It was pandemonium. What the heck is going on? Well, there she was, Lady Liberty, Statue of Liberty, was standing there right in front of me. I had a feeling, and I was already 9 years old, I had a feeling that things were going to be a little bit better. They took us off the ship. Hey, they didn't waste any time because thousands and thousands of people were coming. We went through Ellis Island. My mother and father in one line, the three of us, my sisters and I, were taken to a little room, and I got scared. Hey, they're taking me away from my parents. And as we sit there, the Red Cross volunteers come over, and they carry these big trays, and on the trays are donuts, good old American donuts. Never had one of those. And they gave me a carton of milk. And of course, I washed that down like nobody's business. And I had the audacity to ask for a second carton of milk. And they actually gave it to me. This is America. And I received a little box with some gifts from 6th graders. And I thought, hey, toys. There wasn't a single toy in that box. A white washcloth, a bar of soap, tube of toothpaste, a toothbrush, and a roll of 5 flavor lifesavers. My wonderful gift from the 6th graders of the United States. They put us on a train, I mean, right away. No waiting, we're on a train. Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, and we get on the train, and now, we don't speak English. We have no idea. And a few hours, about 10, 12 hours later, the conductor comes over and says, you gotta get off, you gotta get off. Oh my God. He gets us off the train, and we're in the middle of Union Station in Washington, D.C. Early in the morning. This is Thanksgiving Day now. My father's holding our papers, and the 5 of us, my mother's got my sister Ethel in her arms, and finally a GI walks over, an American soldier walks over. My father hands him our papers, and this GI figured that, hey, these folks aren't from around here. He looks at our papers and decides what train to put us on, and goes to the train, puts us on there, and then he goes in, he kind of pulled me away, because I guess I was the oldest, and he pulls me away, and he went into his pocket and took out a brand new 50 cent piece and handed it to me. Now that was Thanksgiving of 1950. Still have it.
Wow.
Just as a reminder. If it hadn't have been for the American Army, the American military, after World War II in Europe, that number of 6 million would have been tremendously high. And I thank God every day for the military of the United States. We get to Atlanta. They put us up at a hotel for about 2 or 3 days, and then we have a sponsor. About 3 blocks from the state capitol, down Capitol Avenue, Mrs. Goldwasser and her family. It was on a Friday. We pull up from there, and it had a little apartment, 636 Capitol Avenue. A little apartment, 3-room apartment. And the first thing my mother did when they brought the crates, the big wooden crates, because it was a Friday, the first thing my mother did and she took out her candelabra that she bought in Austria to light her Shabbat candles. About an hour later, 45 minutes, there's a knock on the door, and Mrs. Goldwasser and her son Willie, who's probably one of my best friends, we still get together. And as she knocks on the door, and she's carrying this big tray of chicken and all kinds of fixings, and Willie is carrying this big chocolate cake. Yeah. Hey, I was almost 9 years old. Yeah, I can do this. This is going to be good. That next Monday morning, that was on December the 12th, 1950, Mrs. Goldwasser takes me and my sister Ann by the hand, and we walk about 4 blocks down the street, and right behind where Turner Field is now, there was a school, James L. Key Elementary School. I'm sitting in the principal's office. Now, hey, for the first 9 years of my life, I went through hell. Our family went through hell. Living in the DP camp. I was scared. I had no direction. I had no knowledge of anything. I was a scared little boy. A young teacher walks in, beautiful. She's about 22, 23 years old. Her name was Frances Fitterman, 3rd grade teacher, Jewish. She looked at me, and her eyes were just so fixated on me. And that's the way she was the whole time. She wasn't going to let me get away with anything. Yeah, you're a, survivor. That's all, yeah. But now she looked at me and she said, "You're an American. And you're going to learn how to read, how to write. You're going to learn American history. You are going to begin the beginning of the rest of your life." That teacher, that beautiful, wonderful teacher, is the only reason I feel that I'm standing in front of you. The teacher got me my first library card, took me to the library 3 or 4 times a week, right around the corner from where I lived. That teacher, when 3rd graders made fun of my clothes, took me to downtown Atlanta and bought me my first pair of jeans. That teacher brought me back to life. My father took a job with a company called London Iron and Metal Company that was owned by Mr. Sidney Feldman and Mr. Max London, who were some of the greatest men in the history of the city of Atlanta. My father took a job riding on a scrap metal truck, and one day he fell off and got hurt. When he got out of the hospital, Mr. London said, "No, you're not going to go back to this job." He took my father to the First National Bank of Atlanta and co-signed a loan for my father of about $1,500. And I know $1,500 because it was my job for the next 3 years to take a bus downtown Atlanta to pay on that note. He bought a little grocery store in an area of Atlanta that right now, a lot of y'all know the 4th Ward, all the nice restaurants and everything. Well, in the 1950s and 1960s, that was one of the worst, unbelievable black ghettos you could possibly imagine. In the city of Atlanta, it was called Buttermilk Bottom. The conditions were an atrocity, worse than some of the conditions that we lived in the DP camps. My father owned that business from 1952 to about 1978 in the grocery business there. And in that that time, my father paid it forward. He and my mother, side by side, took care of the community. Got medical attention for people that needed it because nobody drove. Gave away food or gave away food on credit. And in the summer of 1963, one day I walk into my father's store and he's having a conversation with this tall African-American gentleman, and I'm introduced. And now my father's broken English was an atrocity. But this gentleman that he was talking to, unbelievable. Well, that was Dr. Martin Luther King, whose church was a few blocks down on Auburn Avenue. Together, they did what Dr. King, of course, in his way, and I and my father in his way. My refuge, of course, was school. My parents crying, remembering. They never really told me what happened, but I could tell. So when I was in school, as you can tell, my English is pretty good. None of my classmates knew, except for two, my two best friends, that I was a survivor, because that was my refuge. Of course, I grew up in Atlanta, Jewish Community Center, B'nai B'rith, the JCC, and of course, one wonderful day, I meet a beautiful Southern belle, and hopefully in August we'll be married 57 years. We have two of the most wonderful children. My son Jeff, who was with me this morning, flew down from Connecticut, and of course my son Jacob, sitting next to his mother. Between them, four of the most unbelievable grandchildren from Aaron, who's now 33, works for the Jewish Welfare Federation of the city of Charleston, South Carolina, started the Remembrance Program with high school students in Charleston. Her brother Eddie, who is now an attorney in the city of Atlanta. His wife Emily, who is a teacher, she teaches pre-K, she teaches special students. My grandson Corey, who lives in Washington, D.C. My beautiful granddaughter, Jacob's daughter Hannah, just graduated from Georgia Southern. And 2 days after she came home, he put her to work. And she now works for a very large event planning company. Remembrance. I remember the atrocities. My father's family, my father found out that the city of Lublin, the Nazis took over 30,000 human beings out of the Lublin ghetto and took them to either Belzig, which was a killing. Belzig per capita was the worst. It was only open for a few months. But every Jew in the city of Lublin either went to Belzig or Majdanek. If you could work, you went to Majdanek. They were gassed, their bodies burned. So now I know why my father cried. Now I know why my mother cried. For years, I did not want to speak about it. My best friend one day invited me to go to a movie at the Jewish Film Festival, and it happened to be a movie about a Jewish family surviving in the caves of Ukraine. And a few days later, I got contacted by the Bremen Holocaust Museum, and I started speaking, and I started doing research. I remember the happy because of what was given to me when I came here, but I also remember what happened. Some of the most beautiful memories in the DP camp. And I was telling Council General this earlier. On May the 14th, 1948, soldiers put up these loudspeakers. And I actually, 7 years old, heard David Ben-Gurion proclaim independence for the state of Israel. You should have seen all the dancing and crying, and the euphoria was just unbelievable. So I have the good memories, but I have the bad memories. And that's the way we are as Jews. We go back 5,000 years. We have the bad memories. Egypt and slavery. The Jews have been persecuted time and again, and we have survived because of our hope, our tenacity, and just pure out and out guts. Our faith in God, and our faith in each other, and our faith in our families. That's what I want to remember. 6 million Jews murdered. For the most part, that's almost the population of the city of Atlanta. None of y'all can tell me that you could possibly put that to 6 million. So let's do it a little different. Instead of 6 million, let's do it 1 Jewish life 6 million times. When I look at pictures of my aunts and uncles, or my grandparents, I do have some pictures. That's what I could remember. We have to remember so it really never happens again. It's still happening. Last year, anti-Semitism, according to the ADL, went up over 30%. We have to keep fighting. Don't give up. Don't be afraid of your Judaism. Be proud, because we have a heritage that is second to none. Our heritage is there. The world is in turmoil, but I think the world would be a heck of a lot better, would be a lot more worse if it isn't for the type of people that are sitting in this room, or the type of people that live in the state of Israel. The world, if the world would just look at the state of Israel and see what we have done in areas of medicine, science, and what we have accomplished as a people. That's what we need to be proud of. That's what we need to remember. 5,000 years of bad, but a lot of good. We have survived, and we will survive. But please, let us remember so that it never happens again. I thank you, Rabbi, I thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Herschel, your story is unbelievable. And we are all witnesses to this story. And we will continue to make sure that story continues to be told from one generation to the next. Because you look at your incredible bride, Michelle and Jacob, it's such an honor to have you with us here this evening, to be a witness to this incredible story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, and a little bit of love as we continue to pay tribute. We remain standing. In your packets, we turn to El Maleh Rachamim for our mourner's prayer as we pay tribute to all of those innocent lives that were taken.
El Maleh Rachamim Shochim Mamromim Am Zeh Menecha Nechana Tachat Kanfecha Shechina Alot Kedoshim Techorim Kezochar Charakiat Matzchirim Et Nishmat Sheshamilyon Achinu V'Achtotinu Al Kedush Hashem Ba'al Rachamim Yestereim B'Seder Kenefav Le'olamim B'Tzror Achayim Et Nishmatam Adonai Chu Chayalatam V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavam v'ne'emar Amen.
Together, fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 million brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Amen. You may be seated just for a moment. Locate all my... Oh, here we go. As we recall the names of those yahrzeit who fall this week, as well as we add with them the 6 million of our brothers and sisters. In our program, you can find the yahrzeit for this week. Amnon Offentier, Aaron Levenstein, Beverly Shidlowski, Charles Wasserman, Diane Macario, Edward Etburn, Henry Berryhill, Hilda Rosenthal, Joan Eagle, Lila Decker, Louis Anapol, Marjorie Cooper, Patricia Friedler, Paul Michael Levine, Stanley Gross, Thomas Malice, and William Weiss. And we add those who died in this past year from our community: Marilyn Kendrick, David Rosenthal, Dr. Murray Arkin, Larry Sheps, Kevin Skoog, Jason Mark Levy, Barbara Fleet, Ira Zimmerman, Teddy Landau, Janet Katz, Gary Landau, Julie Diamond, Jay Piesick, Bart Allen Siegel, Ross Kapstein, Morris Almelech, Edith Ridner, Victoria Levy-Stolzberg, Yehuda Fadlin, Margaret Meehan, Irvin Wilson, Beverly Samuels, Richard Pinkert, Mimi Poland Ferraro, Tanya Milstein Palmer, Gladys Mannheim, Doris Turkle, Stanley Goldberg, Fred Harrington, Lucille Cohen, Ben Rothfeder, Harriet Daniels, Joseph Goldman, Seal Godelski, Barbara Markowitz, Hal Lieberman, Michael Cohen, Freddie Irvin Fine, Stacy Hill, Robert Weiss, Donnie Price, and Harry Mix. And we add those names to the 6 million of our martyred brothers and sisters that perished in the Shoah, along with those men and women who have given their lives and continue to give their lives in defense of Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel, as well as these United States. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. We rise for Kaddish L'Yom HaShoah. You will see at the back of your packets a special Kaddish as we read the words in the Hebrew. We also say the name of the camps. So please feel free to join with us together. Yit Gadal Auschwitz. Yit Kadash Lodz. Shemei Rabbah Ponar. Bialma Divra Chirutei Babiyar. Vayimlich Malchutei Maiden. B'chayechon uvyomechon Birkenau. Uv'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael Kovno. Bagalau Vizman Kariv in Auska. V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Ulalmei Olmaya. Yitbarach V'ishtabach Theresienstadt. V'itpa'ar V'yitromam Buchenwald. V'yitnaseh V'yitadar Treblinka. V'yitalev V'yitalal Vilna. Shemei Dekudsha Brechu Bergen-Belsen. Le'ela Mauthausen. Min kol birchata v'shirata Dachau. Tush bechata v'nechemata Minsk. Da'amiran bi'alma Warsaw. V'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav. Hu yasei shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. May the one who brings peace from the high heavens bring peace to us and all who are bereaved. And let us say together, Amen. You may be seated. It's my honor to call forward Jody Roberts, president of our congregation, to make a few announcements at this time.
Shabbat Shalom. First, I just want to thank all of our special guests that were here this evening. Thank you, Mr. Greenblatt, for being here and sharing your story. We must all remember and never forget. I also want to say Mazel Tov to Jenna and her family. It's wonderful that you are here and that you will be with us tomorrow and for your bar mitzvah. So Mazel Tov on that. As a reminder, we have reintroduced the announcement brochures. You'll find those in your Siddur when you pick it up. So that limits the amount of announcements that I have to make up here. There are a few though. I just want to remind everybody that Sunday, May 1st is the last day of our in-person religious school for this year. It's been an amazing year, and we want to thank all of our religious school teachers and Hope Chernak and Jonah Queen for all the work they have done for our kids and getting them through religious school this year. I think it's been a lot of fun for everybody. Final parenting series is at 11 a.m. This is how we thrive, not just survive, as a family as we move out of pandemic. This will be with guest scholar Dr. Betsy Stone. Our students and their families will also enjoy an end-of-the-year party after class as they enjoy a sweet treat in the parking lot, so I know everybody will look forward to that. On Friday, May 6th at 7:15 is a special Shabbat service as our confirmation class will be running the service. Join us for this special Shabbat where our 10th grade class will lead a meaningful service celebrating all they have learned this year. On Sunday, May 8th, this is very important, at 7 p.m. will be our TKE annual meeting. Join us for Temple Kol Emeth 2022 annual meeting of the congregation. Learn about our accomplishments this past year and the exciting programming we can expect to see in our community next year. Registration by May 6 is required if you're going to join virtually, but we certainly do hope as many of you can be in person as possible. Proxy ballots due by May 6 if you cannot attend this meeting. Again, thank you to the Coben family. We appreciate your sponsoring our ONEG this evening, and we will look forward to joining you in the social hall at the end of services. We wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Vivian, please. She had an announcement, and she will also be doing.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Before you know it, it's going to be Labor Day weekend, and we're having Nashfest. We're very excited about it, but we can't do it without you. So we ask for you to please share your time with this wonderful, wonderful event. I happen to have a sign-up sheet with me, so I will be asking you to please come to me and sign up because we need everybody. We need like 100 people to make this a success as it has been in the past. Thank you.
And Jenna, if you would join us, please. Some special gifts from the congregation.
Hey, Jenna. Well, let me give you a little bit about this wonderful person here. She is the youngest of 3 in the family that moved here from Wisconsin, and I'm from Illinois. You're a 7th grader at Dodgen, plays oboe in the sax, and is in the band. She did a wonderful mitzvah project, which is the National Charity League that serves Must Ministries, Sunrise Senior Center Living, the Sandwich Project, Hunger Doesn't Take a Break, the MDE School, which is a school for special needs children, the Drake House, which houses educational programs for about 100 children and 50 mothers each year who are experiencing homelessness, and Ronald McDonald House. Now get ready for this one, folks. Jenna has her own business called Bee and Bard, which is on Etsy with very creative and lovely items. I looked it up, Bee and Bard, free advertisement. Jenna's very proud of this accomplishment, and Jenna's family is very proud of her for all that she has and is doing, and I can understand why. Right now, Jenna, I'd like to present these gifts to you from the board of Temple Kol Emeth, from the clergy, from the men's club, from the sisterhood, from everybody. I want you to realize, though, that this is not the end of your Jewish education. There's still a lot to learn every day. So continue with that education. Mazel tov to you and your family, and enjoy this wonderful spiritual event you're going to continue to be celebrating.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Viv. Thank you. You know, if you can lead prayers in front of the Consul General and Deputy Consul General of Israel, as well as all of these incredible people tonight, Jenna, I think you're going to do fine tomorrow. So you are all good. We're going to close this evening with you can find in your program the partisan song. In Yiddish, we call Ira Weissman up to sing for us as Blake plays the music. The English translation is below. This is it says in your handout, page 267 at the bottom.
A guten Abend und a guten Shabbat. Ein paar Nacht werden wir reden ein bisschen wegen der Partisanerlied, aber in English, as alle sollen verstehen. In other words, a good evening and good Shabbos. Tonight we're going to speak a little bit about the partisan song, but we're going to do it in English so that everybody can understand. What I was prepared to do was give a little bit of history, go through all 4 verses in translation. I will refer you to Google. All this information is online. And let's just do the verses that you have there. There are, in fact, 4 verses. The first verse is normally repeated. So we'll do verse 1, verse 2, repeat back to verse 1, and we'll get you out of here. Sagt der King was du gehst den letzten Weg. Gott schwindelig bleiben, verstellen, wo ihr tägt. Kommen wir nach unserer ausgebete Schau. Es fällt ab heute unser Trott, wir seien da. Kommen wir nach unserer ausgebete Schau. Es fällt dat point und unser Tag, wir seien da. Von Grün auf Palmenland bis weißem Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unserer Pein, mit unserer Weh. Und wo wir fallen, sind so Spritz von unser Blut. Spratzen wird dort unser Gewürde, unser Mut. Und wo wir fallen, sind so Spritz von unser Blut. Spratzen wird dort unser Gewürde, unser Mut. Das wird der Kämel, als du gehst den letzten Weg. Gott schenkt ein kleine Vorstellung, neue Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird ein Punkt und unser Tag, wir seien da. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schau. Es wird ein Punkt und unser Tag, wir seien da.
Well done, well done, well done. Let's not say that you now walk the final way, because the darkened heavens hide the blue of day. The time we've longed for will at last draw near, and our steps as drums will sound that we are here. As we continue to say the words, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live. In that way, we conclude with Kiddush and Motzi. Feel free to rise with us at this time. And I would ask not only Herschel to join us, Rochelle and Jacob, but also all of those clergy who took their time to be with us tonight, who didn't have to be with us, who could have been home with family and friends. Please come up and join us for Kiddush and Motzi. And Brett, if you would join us with your beloved as well, please come and join us at this time. And I'd like to call, of course, Consul General, Deputy Consul General, to join us at this time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
Amen.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Teavon. As we enjoy, we want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Please, if you would, take your prayer books back out, and we'll have some refreshments and Oneg Shabbat in our social hall. Remember tonight, you've witnessed something special. Never again means never again. Let us all speak up when we need to. Thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you all. Please.